Hey everyone, Mr. Skelton here. We are back at it. We are starting Unit 11, and this is the unit on statistics. And so it's a pretty quick unit. We're only doing, I think, 5 lessons in this unit for this year. And we're going to start off with lesson 1. And today we're going to be looking at some data and creating a box and whisker plot. And we're going to be able to interpret that. If you look down at the next slide, got really 6 things listed here. And I'm going to kind of, these aren't really in order. I'm going to kind of point out some things that you should already know, and then we'll kind of go into some greater detail in them. Measures of central tendency. That should ring a bell, right? That's our mean, median, mode, and range. And we'll talk about those, but that should not be too unfamiliar to you. That should sound familiar to you. Box and whisker plot. I would assume you've made a box and whisker plot before. You've probably forgotten, and we're going to go through that process together. And then in addition to just making it, we're going to interpret it so that we can understand what we're looking at. We'll discuss what an interquartile range is and what that means. And some outliers. You may have heard the word outliers before. And then skewed data. We're going to be talking about skewed data and what that means and what it looks like when talking about a box and whisker plot. Our main focus today, though, is really being able to generate mean, median, mode, and range correctly, and then turning it into a box and whisker plot, and then being able to interpret what that box and whisker plot is and how we can use some of that information or statistics to generate conclusions about data. Okay, so let's just move to the first slide here, or the first page of your notes. So basically this first slide is just to help you organize your data, okay? And it's just a little trick. It's not a trick. It's just a suggestion on how to organize your data. If you look at all this, obviously it's called hold your breath. It's basically we had 25 people hold their breath, and these are times in seconds, and so they're in groups of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And what you always want to do when you have a bunch of data and you're going to make a box and whisker plot is you got to put things in order. We got to get this data in order from smallest to largest, okay? And so this first slide is just a little helpful suggestion on how to do that. Obviously, you can do this just by looking at the data and just going for smallest. Okay, what's my smallest number? 18. Great, goes there. What's next? Okay, I see some things. Or you can do this method. And this I like this method. It works for me. So basically, I'm going to space. I looked at my data. My smallest number is 18, and I have some numbers in the 50s. I don't see anything in the 60s. So what I did is just kind of made a number line. And what I'm going to do is just go by these groups of 5, so like 22. I'm just going to put a 2 here. I'll use a different color. So I'll put a 2 here. So that represents 22. 35, put a 5 there right in the middle. 42, put a 2 there. 57, 7 goes there. 26, 6 would go right there. Okay, so my first 5 are done. 40, just put a 0 over the 40. 37, put a 7 there. 43, 3, 42, another 42. If a number repeats, like 42, this is the second one, you just stack a 2 on top of it. So that tells you I have now 2 42s and then a 48. Okay? And I'll just do one more row. 41, put a 1 there. 25, you put a 5 there. 46, you put a 6 there. 52, 2 goes there. 48, another 48 goes there. So you get the idea. You could fill in these last 2, and then what you would do is you would go, okay, well, 18 is my smallest, I'll put an 8 there. You'd go, okay, I have 18, and then I have 22, and then I have 25, and then I have 26. So this helps you organize your data from smallest to largest, and you can list it. Then you don't have to just try to look all over and say, what's next, what's next, what's next. All right, next slide. You already have things in order. I've put them in order for you, and I have stacked numbers that repeat themselves. And so to find the mean, we're just going to kind of talk about this. Obviously, you can see the answers there. If you want to find the mean, how do you find the mean? You should know that you add all numbers, and then you divide by the total number of data, okay? So you would have, whatever. We know there's 25 people, so we would take our total, once we add them all up, and divide by 25, and that gave us 38. That's how you find the mean. The median, a lot of times we refer to the median as the middle number, okay? And so if you have 25, which is an odd number, that means you should have 12 to the left and 12 to the right, and that magic median number should be in the middle, right? 12 and 12 makes 24, which that would make it the 25th number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our median is 40. So what does that mean? Our median basically means 40 is in the middle, so half the people could hold their breath less than 40 seconds, and half could hold their breath greater than 40 seconds. Median is in the middle. Our mode, what does mode mean? It's the repeated number. So the number that repeats the most. And you can have multiple modes, or you can have no mode. If you do not have a number that repeats, then there's no mode on the data. Range, what is range? Range is basically, you take the largest number and you subtract from the smallest number. So it's the range of the data. So 57 was our largest, 18 was our smallest, and when you subtract those, you get 39. That's our range, okay? Little quick review on mean, median, mode. Should be good with that. We'll do some more if we need. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention about the, where is it? The median. If you have an odd number of data, so like 25, it's easy because the median will always be present because it'll be in the middle, like I did 12, 12, there you go. So for example, if I had like 3, I'll just go 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? There's 5 pieces of data. We always chop from the outside, work your way in, boom. So 2 numbers to the left, 2 numbers to the right. Since there's 5 pieces, 2 left, 2 right, 5's in the middle. Well, what happens if you have an even? So let's say we had 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, when we start chopping, we can't just chop off all the numbers. When you get down to the final 2 in the middle, you take those 2 numbers and you would add them together and then divide by 2. So you take the mean to find the median here. So you get 13 over 2, which would be 6.5. So when you have an even amount of data points, you chop, and then the 2 in the middle you add and divide by 2. So I wanted to make that point about median. All right. Now, what we're going to do is make a box and whisker plot with our data that we have, okay? So what you want to do first when you do a box and whisker plot is kind of what I did on the very first slide. We're going to kind of make a scale at the bottom, so 20, 30, 40, and 50. And this is kind of like our scale just so that we can have numbers to look at so the box and whisker plot makes sense. But we're also going to put some numbers on it. All right, we learned from the previous slide that 40 was our median. And so basically we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 numbers here. That was the lower half. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And these 12 here would be the upper half. Okay? So what we want to do is start with our median. We're going to put that line right there, and that represents 40. That's going to be the middle of our box. Okay? Sometimes we refer to that as Q2, but we'll get to that later. And then what we want to do is create the lower end and upper end of our box. It really turns into a rectangle. And so what we do is we have to find the median, okay? The median, again, of the lower half and the median of the upper half. And so let's do that. So we know we have 12 numbers. So we have even. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right here, because we have an even number of data sets or data points, I'm going to add 30 and 31, so I'm going to get 30.5. So 30.5, which would be right in here, okay, that's going to be 30.5. That is called our lower quartile. And if you just glance down at the bottom of the next slide, you can see how the names are all put together. So that's what we refer to as Q1. So basically that's how to find quartile 1. We do the same thing here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right here, 43 and 46, add those up and divide by 2. We should get 44.5. So 44.5 somewhere in here. All right, and then we kind of connect our box. And this doesn't have to be perfect, obviously. So this would be our quartile 3. This is basically our median, or Q2, and this is our Q1. Now, that's the box. That's how you make the box. So it's basically the box part is just associated with finding the medians, okay? So basically this means half of the people can hold their breath between 44.5 and 30.5. That's how you kind of interpret this, right? Because the middle is 40. You took the median here and the median here, so basically half can hold their breath between 44.5 seconds and 30.5 seconds. And then the whiskers are the highest number and the lowest number. And so 57 would be somewhere in here. We just kind of put a dot. There's our whisker at 57. I like to write 57 there so I can kind of interpret it. And then 18 is my lowest one. So 18, okay, and that's your lowest. A lot of times this is referred to as the max, and this is referred to as the min, all right? So there's your box and whisker plot right there. That's how you would do it, and that's what I would expect it to look like on a quiz test or a homework. So you can see on this previous one here, let me zoom out a little actually. I'm going to try to see if I can get both of these in. I can, okay? So here's lower quartile, median, upper quartile, max, and min. I'm going to need all those things listed. Interquartile range. So your interquartile range is when you take Q3, which is the 44.5, and you subtract it from the quartile 1. So this is important right here. I will ask for interquartile range. So if you subtract those, basically you just get 14. So our interquartile range, or IQR, would be 14. All right, that's important. You would have to put that on paper if I asked for the interquartile range. And then obviously the max and min you can see there. Okay. So you'll be expected to be able to make a box and whisker plot as you venture forward. What I'm going to do here is just go through a couple of examples of interpreting a box and whisker plot. So just bear with me for a second here. If you want to draw this, you can. Don't feel like you have to. So if these were two companies, obviously company A and company B, and this box and whisker refers to pay, so money that you would make as an employee at company A versus company B. And I would ask you to kind of describe what's happening here and what are some advantages and what are some disadvantages of company A versus company B. So let's point out a couple here. So obviously with company B, we're going to start out with a little bit more money, right? We're going to start with more. But what do you notice? Company A, it looks like you have the opportunity to make more. Now, we don't know, this could just be one person, right? This could be, you know, the best salesman that is in company A. The next best person could be right here. We don't know that, okay? And that is an example of an outlier, and we're going to talk more about outliers later, but that is an outlier because it's way beyond kind of the norm, and so that's an example of an outlier, but again, we'll go into more specifics in lesson 2. Okay? The other thing that we would talk about is, what is this line here? This is the middle. This is the median. That's what kind of, right, the middle spot. So what's the advantage? Well, in company B, it looks a little bit more stable. It looks like at least half the people are going to make a little bit more than the half the people that are making in company A, but obviously in company A you have a greater chance to make a little bit more money, okay? Whereas here in company A, it looks like, you don't make as much on average. For the average employee, you make a little bit less than company B. Obviously you start out with a little bit less pay in the beginning, but again, you have that opportunity to make more, okay? So, talked about the median. Our interquartile range, again, is going to be roughly the same. I mean, I again, not knowing numbers, but I have them set up to be almost identical, so that would be about the same. Skewed data. This is skewed also just because we don't know. With skewed data, again, this could just be one person. So this could be one person making 100 grand, but the next closest to them could be making very close to, your Q your Q3 over there. So that's an example of skewed data where you just don't know what's falling in between these two ends, okay? So again, what we really want to focus on today is just making sure that you can make a box and whisker plot and that you have the max labeled, your Q3, your Q2 labeled with the numbers, the mins. You have the scale underneath it. A lot of times I will ask for the IQR, which is interquartile range, just subtracting them. And then again, being able to understand what's actually happening, that within this box right here, here and here represent half of the population. So half the population are between 30.5 and 44.5 seconds to be able to interpret that. This would be the lower quarter, this would be the upper quarter. A quarter and a quarter make it another half, and a half and a half make all, or everything. Okay? Look forward to seeing you in class. If you have questions, let me know.